You can already feel it. Something has changed in the way you occupy space. Not overnight, more like a rising tide, without you noticing the exact moment the water covered the sand. You're not the same person you were at 30, and it's not a loss you carry. It's something else, something you haven't fully named yet. But you feel it in the way you look at others, in your patience with things that used to exhaust you, in this calmer, more intense presence you radiate without even thinking about it. And yet, the world around you continues to speak to you as if a woman's worth were still measured by rules belonging to another decade of your life. As if 40 were a decline. As if you had to fight to remain relevant, desirable, interesting, instead of simply becoming finally, fully yourself. Perhaps you feel this tension between what the world tells you to fear and what you truly feel inside, something that feels less like a decline and more like a revelation. Perhaps you've already noticed that people look at you differently, speak to you differently, that there's a quality of respect or fascination in certain rooms that wasn't there before, without you knowing exactly why. Tonight, I'm going to show you what really happens in a woman's psyche after 40, and why what the world calls aging is, from the perspective of the deepest psychology that exists, the entry into the most powerful period of a lifetime. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human soul the world has ever known, devoted a significant portion of his life to studying what he called the second half of existence, that period which generally begins after middle age, in which the psyche undertakes work entirely different from that of youth. And the concept he developed to understand this transformation is called individuation. The process by which the human being ceases to construct himself according to external expectations and begins to move towards a more authentic and complete form of himself. In short, individuation, in the second half of life, transforms a woman who was pleasing into a woman who radiates. And this difference is not cosmetic, it is ontological. It's no coincidence that you're experiencing this change. It's one of the most documented transformations in all of human psychology. Jung observed something fundamental about what happens in the female psyche after the age of 40. He observed that the first half of life is largely devoted to the construction of the persona, this social mask adapted to external expectations, to seduction, to validation, to adapting to what the world demands in order to be accepted and desired. And he observed that in the second half of life, something shifts. The persona, which was necessary to navigate the world and build a life, gradually becomes insufficient. Something deeper begins to demand to be experienced. The totality of the personality, including the parts that the persona had to set aside to be socially acceptable. What this means in concrete terms. At 40, a woman begins to integrate parts of herself that she had learned to minimize. Her legitimate anger, her ambition, her sexuality unfiltered by the gaze of others, her need for truth rather than to please. This integration produces something that the outside world immediately perceives, even without being able to name it. A denser, more complete presence, less divided between what she is and what she shows. That's what the people around you are starting to notice, not a decrease, a consolidation, and here is the even deeper mechanism you need to understand. Jung observed that in the first half of life, attraction often operates through the persona, through what society values as desirable at a given time, through external codes that everyone learns to perform. But in the second half, another form of attraction begins to operate, one that comes from psychic integration itself. People are no longer simply attracted to what you show. They are attracted to who you have become. This kind of attraction is rarer and more powerful because it requires no performance. It simply emanates from inner coherence, from someone who no longer needs to divide themselves to be acceptable. And somewhere deep down, you already knew it. You felt something within you becoming stronger, more authentic, less concerned with the constant approval of others. Something within you knew that this change wasn't a loss of power, but the acquisition of a power of an entirely different nature. Herein lies the paradox at the heart of this transformation, and it is one of the most important that Jung documented about female psychology. The less a woman tries to please, the more irresistible she becomes. Just one sentence, and it overturns everything the first half of your life taught you about desire and attraction. Jung would explain this paradox as follows. Seeking to please requires a constant inner division. One part of you observes the other, evaluates it, and adjusts it according to what the outside world might approve. This division, despite itself, produces a kind of energetic dispersion. Something within you is always elsewhere, monitoring the effect produced rather than fully inhabiting the present moment. And the most powerful attraction doesn't come from this dispersion. It comes from its disappearance. When a woman stops dividing herself between who she is and who she shows, all her energy becomes available to simply be present. And this focused presence, without performance, without constant monitoring of the effect produced, is what human beings feel as magnetic, even without being able to explain it. Here are the habits that accompany and accelerate this transformation. The first habit is listening to inner truth rather than external approval. It's the ability, developed over time, to first ask oneself what is true for oneself before considering what will be well received. A 40-year-old woman who has internalized this habit no longer lies to soften a situation. She tells the truth, tactfully but directly. And this honesty generates a confidence that no one can superficially imitate. The second habit is the full occupation of space. It's the way she walks, sits, and speaks without making herself small. Not arrogance, it's permission. Permission to take up all the space she deserves without apologizing for her presence. The third habit is chosen solitude. A woman undergoing this transformation is no longer afraid of being alone. She distinguishes between solitude and isolation, and she uses this time to reconnect with herself rather than to fill a void with any presence. The fourth habit is curiosity rather than judgment. She is interested in the world and others with an openness that does not immediately judge, because she has made enough peace with her own shadows that she no longer needs to project onto others what she has not yet accepted in herself. The fifth habit is easy and deep laughter, not a polite laugh, a laugh that comes from someone who no longer takes their image too seriously, who can laugh at themselves without collapsing, who has made peace with their imperfection. The sixth habit is self-care, without justification. She takes care of her body, her mind, her needs. Not to meet an external standard, but because she has understood that respecting herself is the condition of any healthy relationship with others. But here is what Jung would add, the most essential part of all this evening. These habits are not techniques to be applied to become more desirable in the eyes of others. That would be falling back into the very division they are meant to overcome. They are the natural consequences of genuine inner work, that of individuation. The real question, therefore, isn't how to become irresistible. The real question is, what haven't you yet integrated into yourself? What part of yourself are you still waiting for permission to fully inhabit? What you are feeling, this transformation, this new density, is real, and it depends on no one but you. You are not declining. You are finally becoming fully yourself. And that is still, ultimately, the most powerful thing a human being can accomplish. Just tell me one thing in the comments. Have you also felt this transformation since turning 40? One word is enough. I read every message. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video tonight with a woman going through this transformation. Someone who needs to know that what she's becoming isn't a decline, but a revelation. Take care of yourself.